pretty sure. Yep. There we are. Well, greetings. It is time for another Begrudging book club. Oh, there you are. Hi, Wendy. Says there are 3 people in here. There's Martin, so now we got 4. I guess what? At least one of them is me. Possibly 2. Well, let's just get things rolling. Wendy, you've got... Why did I just hold that to my microphone? Anyways, soothe. Quiet is a weapon. Use responsibly. Reload with breath. Oh, having trouble hearing me. Let's see. It says my microphone. Better? I guess we shall see. Martin, you're next. You've got move, trip with purpose, blame gravity, not grace, gravity, not grace. Oh, Kiwi Wi-Fi's failing you. Greetings, Lydia. Welcome to Begrudging Book Club. Let's get you your card. You have soothe, soften, but do not dissolve. Warm lighting optional. I like that one. I feel like maybe that could be my card for today. You know what? I just realized I don't draw cards for myself. Like, I do, but not during book club. Anyways, oh, greetings, Tavis. I've seen you around. Welcome to Begrudging Book Club. Ooh, you've got boundaries. Ghosting is energy conservation. Haunt gracefully. You know, that's one of my favorites. I believe in haunting gracefully in so many different ways. Oh, Zombie. Welcome. Ooh, this one is a good one for you, girlfriend. Boundaries. You are allowed to be unavailable, even to guilt. Auto reply, nope. Goodbye. And actually, the last thing I wrote was kind of about being a big F you to guilt. So, looks like everyone has their card. Oop. Let's get to our poem. Let's see where we're going tonight. I think I was looking and I do think, oh, I guess when I had said Lydia, I guess Zoe is moonlighting as Lydia. But back to... So I do think we might have another dead bitch story. You know, I love those. Because no, it's not this one. Eleonora, so that's 4 pages. That's pretty reasonable. We also have A Tale of the Ragged Mountains. That's like 7 pages. Reasonable. And those are, yeah, Death and Resurrection. Then we have MS Found in a Bottle, Adventure of Sea and Sky. That is reasonable. I think we're going with Eleonora. I don't really see anybody saying anything's calling to them. So that's page 52. All right. Eleonora. So, oh, where's my tracking card? Alright, and actually, you know what? This tracking card can be my card. I just pulled it anyway. Ugh, of course. Reframe. You occasionally confuse growth with analysis. Take a nap instead. I did take a nap earlier today, so... And honestly, I don't even know if you could call it a nap because it was before 12 in the afternoon. It was more, I went back to sleep for a little bit after I was up for a while. So, that's my card. That's what I'll say. And I am forever analytical. Okay. Eleonora. Let's get you... Sub conservatione forme specife salva anima. Ooh. That didn't quite sound like I was summoning something, so who knows. Under the protection of a specific form, my soul is safe. So... close. I mean, that sounds like the pre-summoning ritual. That's what you say right before you start dabbling into shit you shouldn't be. Oh, Lord. Okay. The first sentence is already a sentence. I am come of a race noted for vigor of fancy and ardor of passion. Men have called me mad. But the question is not yet settled, whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence. Whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence. He is, where are you, Wendy? Is this not, and are these like first sentences for you? I feel like they are. Whether that is glory, whether much that is glorious, whether all that is profound, does not spring from disease of thought, from moods of mind exalted at the expense of general intellect. They who dream by day are cognizant of many things which escape those who dream only by night. In their gray visions they obtain glimpses of eternity, and thrill in awakening to find that they have been upon the verge of the great secret. In snatches, they learn something of the wisdom which is of good, and more of the knowledge which is of evil. They penetrate, however, rudderless or compassless into the vast ocean of the light ineffable. And again, like the adventures of the Nubian geographer, agressi sunt mare tenebrarum quid in eo esset exploraturi. Ventured into the sea of darkness in order to explore what it might contain. Ooh. Where's my... Okay. We will say, then, that I am mad. I grant at least that there are two distinct conditions of my mental existence. The condition of lucid reason, not to be disputed, and belonging to the memory of events forming for the first epoch of my life, and a condition of shadow and doubt, appertaining to the present, and to the recollection of what constitutes the second great era of my being. Therefore, what I shall tell of the earlier period, believe, and to what I may relate of the later time, give only such credit as may seem due, or doubt it altogether, or, if doubt you cannot, then play unto its riddle the Oedipus. She whom I loved in youth, and of whom now I pen calmly and distinctly these remembrances, was the sole daughter of the only sister of my mother long departed. The sole daughter of the only sister of my mother. So your cousin? He's writing about his cousin again. This guy. Oh, yep. Eleanor was the name of my cousin. Duh. We had always dwelled together beneath a tropical sun in the valley of the many-colored grass. No unguided footstep ever came upon that vale, for it lay away among a range of giant hills that hung beetling around it, shutting out the sunlight from its sweetest recesses. No path was trodden in its vicinity, and, to reach our happy home, there was need of putting back, with force, the foliage of many thousands of forest trees, and of crushing to death the glories of the many millions of fragrant flowers. Thus it was that we lived all alone, knowing nothing of the world without the valley, I and my cousin and her mother. From the dim regions beyond the mountains and the upper end of our encircled domain, there crept out a narrow and deep river, brighter than all save the eyes of Eleonora, and, winding stealthily about in many courses, it passed away at length through a shadowy gorge among the hills still dimmer than those whence it had issued. We called it the River of Silence, for there seemed to be a hushing influence in its flow. No murmur arose from its bed, and so gently it wandered along that the pearly pebbles upon which we loved to gaze, far down within its bosom, I think we're not going to mess with it yet. Far down within its bosom, stirred not at all, but lay in a motionless content, each in its own old station, shining on gloriously forever. The margins of the river and of the many dazzling rivulets that guided through the devious ways into the channel, as well as the spaces that extended from the margins away down into the depths of the streams until they reached the bed of pebbles at the bottom. These spots, not less than the whole surface of the valley, from the river to the mountains that girdled it in, were carpeted all by a soft green grass, thick, short, perfectly even, and vanilla perfumed, but so but so besprinkled throughout with the yellow buttercup, the white daisy, the purple violet, and the ruby red asphodel, that its exceeding beauty spoke to our hearts in the loud tones of the love and the glory of God. And here and there, in groves about this grass, like wilderness of dreams, sprang up fantastic trees, whose tall, slender stems stood not upright, but slanted gracefully toward the light that peered at noonday into the center of the valley. Their mark was speckled with the vivid alternate splendor of ebony and silver, and was smoother than save all the cheeks of Eleonora. Oh. So that, but for the brilliant green of the huge leaves that spread from their summits in long, tremulous lines, dallying with the zephyrs, one might have fancied them giant serpents of Syria doing homage to their sovereign with the sun. Hand in hand about this valley, for 15 years, roamed I with Eleonora, before love entered within our hearts. Here we are. It was one evening at the close of the third lustrum of her life, and the fourth of my own is a Ziggy. What's a lustrum? Oh, you idiot. Fucking worthless. We'll highlight this and look it up later. Or maybe good old Martin will pop up in the chat. He can be my dictionary. Yeah, the third lustrum, and I the fourth of my own. That we sat, locked in each other's embrace, beneath the serpent-like trees, and looked down within the water of the river of silence at our images therein. Yeah, I figured it had something to do with numbers. So a lustrum is a 5-year period. She's 15, he's 20. Let's make it creepier. And looked down within the water of the river of silence at our images therein. We spoke no words during the rest of that sweet day, and our words, even upon the morrow, were tremulous and few. We had drawn the god Eros from that wave, and now that we felt he had enkindled within us the fiery souls of our forefathers, the passions which had for centuries distinguished our race, came thronging with the fancies for which they had been equally noted, and together breathed a delirious bliss over the valley of the many-colored grass. A change fell upon all things. Strange, brilliant flowers, star-shaped, burn out upon the trees where no flowers had been known before. The tints of the green carpet deepened, and when one by one the white daisies shrank away, there sprang up in the place of them 10 by 10 of the ruby red asphodel, and life arose in our paths. For the tall flamingo, hitherto unseen, with all gay glowing birds, flaunted his scarlet plumage before us. Where's Brandon? Hitherto unseen before us, the golden and silver fish haunted the river, out of the bosom of which issued, little by little, a murmur that swelled at length into a lulling melody more divine than that of the harp of Aeolus, sweeter than all save the voice of Eleonora. And now, too, a voluminous cloud, which we had long watched in the regions of Hesper, floated out thence, all gorgeous in crimson and gold, and settling in peace above us, sank day by day, lower and lower, until its edges rested upon the tops of the mountains, turning all their dimness into magnificence, and shutting us up, as if forever, within a magic prison house of grandeur and glory. The loveliness of Eleonora was that of the seraphim, but she was a maiden artless and innocent in the brief life she had among the flowers. No guile disguised as fervor of love which animated her heart, and she examined with me its inmost recesses as we walked together in the valley of the many-colored grasses, and discoursed of the mighty changes which had lately taken place therein. At length, having spoken one day in tears of the last sad change which must befall humanity, she thenceforward dwelt only upon this one sorrowful theme, interweaving it into all of our converse. As in the songs of the bard Shiraz, the same images are found occurring again and again in impressive variation of phrase. She had seen the finger of death was upon her bosom, that, like the ephemeron, she had been made perfect in loveliness only to die. But the terrors of the grave to her lay solely in a consideration which she revealed to me one evening at twilight, by the banks of the river Silence. She grieved to think that, having entombed her in the valley of the many-colored grass, I would quit forever its happy recesses, transferring the love which now was so passionately her own to some maiden of the outer and everyday world. And then and there, I threw myself hurriedly at the feet of Eleonora, and offered up a vow to herself and to heaven that I would never bind myself in marriage to any daughter of earth, that I would in no manner prove recreant to her dear memory, or to the memory of the devout affection with which she had blessed me. And I called the mighty ruler of the universe to witness the pious solemnity of my vow, and the curse which I invoked of him and of her, a saint in illusion, should I prove traitorous to that promise, involved a penalty, the exceeding great horror of which will not permit me to make record of it here. Okay. And the bright eyes of Eleonora grew brighter at my words, and she sighed as if a deadly burden had been taken from her breast, and she trembled and very bitterly wept. But she had made acceptance of the vow. For what was she but a child? Okay, so you're aware of your creepiness, but I guess it wasn't creepy back then. No matter what, it's his cousin. It's creepy, yeah. It made it, and it made easy to her bed of death. And she said to me, not many days afterward, tranquilly dying, that because of what I had done for the comfort of her spirit, she would watch over me in that spirit when departed. And, if so it were permitted, her return to me visibly in the watches of the night. All she's asking if she can haunt him. Ooh. But if this thing were indeed beyond the power of the souls in paradise, that she would at least give me frequent so he wants to be haunted regularly, frequent indications of her presence, sighing upon me in the evening winds, or filling the air which I breathed with perfume from the censers of the angels. And with these words upon her lips, she yielded up her innocent life, putting an end to the first epoch of my own. Thus far, I have faithfully said, but as I pass the barrier in time's path, formed by the death of my beloved, and proceed with the second era of my existence, I feel that a shadow gathers themselves along heavily, and I still dwelled within the valley of the many-colored grass. But a second change had come upon all things. The star-shaped flowers shrank into the stems of the trees and appeared no more. The tints of the green carpet faded, and one by one, the ruby-red asphodels withered away, and there sprang up, in place of them, 10 by 10, dark, eye-like violets that writhed uneasily and were ever encumbered with dew. And life departed from our paths, for the tall flamingo flaunted no longer his scarlet plumage before us, but flew sadly from the vale into the hills. And, with all the gay glowing birds that had arrived in his company, and the golden and silver fish swam down through the gorge at the lower end of our domain, and bedecked the sweet river never again. And the lulling melody that had been softer than the wind harp of Aeolus, and more divine than save all the voice of Eleonora, it died little by little away in murmurs and growing lower and lower until the stream returned, at length, utterly into the solemnity of its original silence. And then, lastly, the voluminous cloud uprose, and abandoning the tops of the mountains and the dimness of the old. Yes! Brandon! There you are! You weren't here the first time I talked about gay birds. Let's get you your card. Ooh, you've got hydrate. You're 70% water, or 70% chaos and 30% water. Top off. 1 gulp per intrusive thought. That's a task. Okay. Back to our gay birds. Go to the lower side, blah, blah, blah. Fell back in and took away. Yeah, and lastly, the voluminous cloud uprose, and abandoning the tops of the mountain to the dimness of old, fell back into the regions of Hesper, and took away all its manifold, golden, and gorgeous glories from the valley of the many-colored grass. Yes, Poe's writing about a valley of many-colored grass, and there's a river of silence, and, he was 20 running around in love with his 15-year-old cousin. We've got another cousin love. I wonder, I should look into this. Is he constantly writing about the same cousin, or does he have different cousins that he was in love with? Oh, yeah, no, and she's dying. She promised to haunt him. He begged her to do it, repeatedly. There's that part, too. Yet the promises of Eleonora were not forgotten, for I heard the sounds of the swinging of the censers of the angels, and streams of a holy perfume floated ever and ever about the valley, and at lone hours, when my heart beat heavily, the winds that bathed my brow came unto me laden with soft light and indistinct murmurs, filled often the night air, and once, oh, but once only, I was awakened from a slumber, like the slumber of death, by the pressing of spiritual lips upon my own. Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh, are we back? Okay, I think we're back. So we're back. I don't know what happened to Substack, but we've got spiritual lips upon my own. I'm thinking ghost lips, Brandon. She died. He begged her to haunt her or haunt him, and he. But the void within my heart refused, even thus, to be filled. I longed for the love which had before filled it to overflowing. At length, the valley pained me through its memories of Eleonora, and I left it forever the vanities and the turbulent triumphs of the world. I found myself within a strange city, where all things might have served to blot from the recollection of sweet dreams I had dreamed so long in the valley of the many-colored grass. The pomps and pageantries of a stately court, and the mad clangor of arms, and the radiant loveliness of women, bewildered and intoxicated my brain. But as yet my soul had proved true to its vows, and the indications of the presence of Eleanor were still given to me in the silent hours of the night. Suddenly, these manifestations, they ceased, and the world grew dark before mine eyes, and I stood aghast at the burning thoughts which possessed, at the terrible temptations which beset me. For there came from some far, far distant and unknown land into the gay court of the king I served, a maiden to whose beauty my whole recreant heart yielded at once, at whose footstool I bowed down without a struggle, in the most ardent, in the most abject worship of love. What indeed was my passion for the young girl of the valley in comparison with the fervor and the delirium and the spirit-lifting ecstasy of adoration with which I poured out my whole soul in tears at the feet of the ethereal Ermengarde? Oh, bright was the seraph Ermengarde. Ermengarde. Sorry. And as I looked down into the depths of her memorial eyes, I thought only of them and of her. I wedded, nor dreaded the curse I had invoked, and its bitterness was not visited upon me. And once again, in the silence of the night, there came through my lattice the soft sighs which had forsaken me, and they modeled themselves into familiar and sweet voice, saying, "Sleep in peace, for the spirit of love reigneth and ruleth, and in taking to thy passionate heart her who is Ermengarde, thou art absolved, for reasons which shall be made known to thee in heaven, thy vows unto Eleonora." Okay. I see you, Poe. That was an interesting one. I do love, like, how he painted the picture of the valley and of many colored grasses. And every time I said that, it had me wondering, like, okay, let's imagine a field of many colored grasses. Do we have our, like, good old American amber waves of grain? And so we have, like, you know, the tall and, yeah. And also, I guess, what kind of grasses? I don't know. At least he was good at building the scene for this one. I want to move to a house among the many colored glass and gay glowing birds. Yes, like it does sound like a place to be. Just not with your 15-year-old cousin. Ugh. Alright. Let's mark it off. What next? Yeah, I think we'll do A Tale of the Ragged Mountains. Yeah, that one's not too long. Ooh, page 69, guys. And I don't have to open with Latin. Already a winner. Actually, since we're here, let's get you a wee bit. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. A Tale of the Ragged Mountains. During the fall of the year 1827, while residing near Charlottesville, Virginia, I casually made the acquaintance of Mr. Augustus Bedloe. This young gentleman was remarkable in every respect, and excited in me a profound interest and curiosity. I found it impossible to comprehend him, either in his moral or his physical relations. Of his family, I could obtain no satisfactory account. Whence he came, I never ascertained. Even about his age, although I call him a young gentleman, there was something which perplexed me in no little degree. He certainly seemed young, and he made a point of speaking about his youth. Yet, there were moments when I should have had little trouble in imagining him 100 years of age. But in no regard was he more peculiar than in his personal appearance. Greetings, DP. Welcome to Begrudging Book Club. We just started A Tale of the Ragged Mountains. And I was already, I saw A Tale of the Ragged Mountains, and I immediately got Brokeback Mountain vibes. And to be honest, I'm still feeling it. You've got hydrate, moisture, because decomposition shouldn't start early. Add lemon if you crave the illusion of control. A man named Augustus must be remarkable, or a fat kid who likes chocolate. Yeah, I was just thinking, you don't hear about an Augustus, and I feel like there's an Augie in a book I read. Resident Librarian, tell me all the Augies in books. No, I can't remember, but I was like, oh, that's, or even just regular old August. I feel like it's a good dog name. Could be a good hot guy name. I'm convinced Poe might be waxing poetic about this guy. But maybe not. Who knows? He certainly does have his thing for 15-year-old cousins, and this guy is not it. He certainly seemed young, and he made a point of speaking about his youth. Yet, there were moments when I should have had little trouble imagining him 100 years of age. But in no regard was he more peculiar than in his personal appearance. He was singularly tall and thin. He stooped much. His limbs were exceedingly long and emaciated. His forehead was broad and low. His complexion was absolutely bloodless. His mouth was large and flexible, and his teeth were more wildly uneven, although sound than I had ever before seen in a human head. Okay. Not nice. The expression of his smile, however, was by no means unappealing, as might be supposed. But it had no variation whatsoever. It was one of profound melancholy, of a phaseless and unceasing gloom. His eyes were abnormally large and round like those of a cat. The pupils, too, upon any accession or diminution of light, underwent contraction or dilation, just as it is observed in the feline tribe. In moments of excitement, the orbs grew bright to a degree almost inconceivable, seeming to emit luminous rays, not of a reflected, but of an intrinsic luster, as does a candle or the sun. Yet their ordinary condition was so totally vapid, filmy, and dull as to convey the idea of the eyes of a long interred corpse. These peculiarities of person appeared to cause him much annoyance, and he was continually alluding to them in a sort of half-explanatory, half-apologetic strain, which, when I first heard of it, impressed me very painfully. I soon, however, grew accustomed to it, and my uneasiness wore off. It seemed to be his design, rather, to insinuate than directly assert that, physically, he had not always been what he was, that a long series of neuralgic attacks had reduced him from a condition more than usual personal beauty. To which I saw, for many years past, he had been attended by a physician named Templeton. The return of Augie. Wonder and its kid. There, dropped a card. Thanks, Martin. Who knows what it was, but it's Augie. It's just one of those names. It's a whole vibe. Much appreciated. Okay. Dr. Templeton, an old gentleman, perhaps 70 years of age, whom he had first encountered at Saratoga, and from whose attention, while there, he either received, or fancied that he received, great benefit. The result was that Bedloe, who was wealthy, had made an arrangement with Dr. Templeton, by which the latter, in consideration of a liberal annual allowance, had consented to devote his time and medical experience exclusively to the care of the invalid. Dr. Templeton, yes, the rat from Charlotte's Web. There we go. Dr. Templeton had been a traveler in his younger days, and at Paris had become a convert, in great measure to the doctrines of Mesmer. Ooh, we've got that creepy hypnosis back. It was altogether by means of magnetic remedies that he had succeeded in alleviating the acute pains of his patient, and this success had very naturally, it was only a matter of time, had very naturally inspired the latter with a certain degree of confidence in the opinions from which the remedies had been educed. The doctor, however, like all enthusiasts, had struggled to make a thorough convert of his pupil, and finally so far gained his point as to induce the sufferer to submit to numerous experiments. By frequent repetition of these, a result had arisen, which of late days had become so common as to attract little or no attention, but which, at the period of which I write, had very rarely been known in America. I mean to say that between Dr. Templeton and Bedloe, there had grown up, little by little, a very distinct and strongly marked rapport, extended beyond the limits of the simple sleep-producing power. But this power itself had attained great intensity. At the first attempt to induce the magnetic solemnity, the mesmerist entirely failed. In the fifth or sixth, he succeeded very partially. And after long continued effort, only at the 12th was the triumph complete. After this, the will of the patient succumbed rapidly to that of the physician, so that when I first became acquainted with the two, sleep was brought about almost instantaneously by the mere volition of the operator, even when the invalid was unaware of his presence. It is only now, in the year 1845, when similar miracles are witnessed daily by thousands, that I dare venture to record this apparent impossibility as a matter of serious fact. The temperature of Bedloe was, in the highest degree, sensitive, excitable, enthusiastic. His imagination was singularly vigorous and creative, and no doubt it derived additional force from the habitual use of morphine. He's not hypnotizing this dude, he's drugging him out of his mind. Gotcha. Oh, man. Which he swallowed in great quantity, and without which he would have found it impossible to exist. I know what that's like sometimes. It was his practice to take a very large dose of it immediately after breakfast each morning, or rather, immediately after a cup of strong coffee. For he ate nothing in the forenoon. And then he set forth alone, or attended only by a dog, upon a long ramble among the chain of wild and dreary hills that lie westward and southward of Charlottesville, and are there dignified by the title of the Ragged Mountains. Upon a dim, warm, misty day, toward the close of November, and during the strange interregnum of the seasons in which America is termed the Indian summer, Mr. Bedloe departed as usual for the hills. The day passed, and still he did not return. About 8 o'clock at night, having become seriously alarmed at his protracted absence, we were about setting out in search of him, when he unexpectedly made his appearance, in health no worse than usual, and in rather more than ordinary spirits. The account which he gave of his expedition, and of the events which had detained him, was a singular one indeed. "You will remember," said he, "that it was about time in the morning when I left Charlottesville. I bent my steps immediately to the mountains, and, about 10, entered a gorge which was entirely new to me. I followed the windings of this pass with much interest. The scenery, which had presented itself on all sides, although scarcely entitled to desolation, the solitude seemed absolutely virgin. Virgin solitary. That, where's my highlighter? We're keeping that. Could you imagine, like, being the first person to ruin the... Okay. Virgin solitude. Alright. The solitude seemed absolutely virgin. I could not help believing that the green sods and the gray rocks upon which I trod had been trodden never before by the foot of a human being. So entirely secluded, and in fact inaccessible, except through a series of accidents, is the entrance of the ravine, that it is by no means impossible that I was indeed the first adventurer, the very first and sole adventurer who had ever penetrated its recesses. Okay. The thick and peculiar mist, or smoke, which distinguishes the Indian summer, and which now hung heavily over all objects, served no doubt to deepen the vague impressions which these objects created. So dense was this pleasant fog that I could at no time see more than a dozen yards of the path before me. This path was excessively sinuous, and as the sun could not be seen, I soon lost all idea of the direction in which I journeyed. In the meantime, the morphine had its customary effect, that of enduring all the external world with the intensity of interest. Yes, Brandon, I think he's getting enamored with the many-colored grasses and the gay glowing birds. The morphine had its customary effect, that of enduing all the external world with an intensity of interest. In the quivering of a leaf, in the hue of a blade of grass, in the shape of a trefoil, in the humming of a bee, in the gleaming of a dewdrop, in the breathing of the wind, in the faint odors that came from the forest, there came a whole universe of suggestion. A gay and motley train of rhapsodical and immethodical thought. Busied in this, I walked on for several hours, during which the mist deepened around me to so great an extent that at length I was reduced to an absolute groping of the way. And now an indescribable uneasiness possessed me, a species of nervous hesitation and tremor. I feared to tread, lest I should be precipitated into some abyss. I remembered, too, strange stories about these ragged hills, and of the uncouth fancies oppressed and disconcerted me. Fancies the more distressing because vague. Very suddenly, my attention was arrested by the loud beating of a drum. My amazement was, of course, extreme. A drum in these hills was a thing unknown. I could not have been more surprised. Sunroom, welcome to book club. Didn't know you were here. Let's get you a card. I'm over here reading about, what's his name? Bedloe. He's a guy with real jacked teeth that gets dosed up on morphine a lot and goes walking in the mountains. Ah, you've got move, dance badly, Worship efficiently. Summon endorphins out of spite. Ha 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 ha. That should be easy for you, making all that music. Okay. I could not have been more surprised at the sound of the trump of the archangel, but a new and still more astounding source of interest and perplexity arose. There came a wild rattling or jingling sound, as if a bunch of large keys, and upon the instant a dusky-visaged and half-naked man rushed past me with a shriek. He came so close to my person that I felt his hot breath upon my face. He bore in one hand an instrument composed of an assemblage of steel rings and shook them vigorously as he ran. Scarcely had he disappeared in the mist before, panting after him, with open mouth and glaring eyes, there darted a huge beast. I could not be mistaken in its character. It was a hyena in Charlottesville. And a naked guy. At least this story's getting interesting now. Yeah, he's like Slender Man. The sight of this monster rather relieved than heightened my terrors. For I now made sure that I dreamed and endeavored to arouse myself to waking consciousness. I stepped boldly and briskly forward, rubbed my eyes, I called aloud, I pinched my limbs. A small spring of water presented itself to my view, and here, stooping, I bathed my hands and my head and neck, and this seemed to dissipate the equivocal sensations which had hitherto annoyed me. I arose, as I thought, a new man, and proceeded steadily and complacently on my unknown way. At length, quite overcome by exertion, and by a certain oppressive closeness of the atmosphere, that describes the Virginia humidity, and honestly, even today, like here where I am, the humidity, it's terrible. A certain oppressive closeness of the atmosphere. I seated myself beneath a tree. Presently, there came a feeble gleam of sunshine, and the shadow of the leaves of the tree fell faintly but definitely upon the grass. At this shadow, I gazed wonderingly for many minutes. Its character stupefied me with astonishment. I looked upward. The tree was a palm. Yeah, he's high. I arose now hurriedly and in a state of fearful agitation, for the fancy that I dreamed would serve me no longer. I felt that I had the perfect command of the dream world. Of the dream world, wow. A perfect command of my senses. And these senses now brought to my soul a world of novel and singular sensation. The heat became all at once intolerable. A strange odor loaded the breeze. A low, continuous murmur, like that arising from a lull, from a full but gently flowing river, came to my ears, intermingled with the peculiar hum of multitudinous human voices. Multitudinous human voices. Well, guys. While I listened in an extremity of astonishment, which I need not attempt to describe, a strong and brief gust of wind bore off the incumbent fog as if by the wand of an enchanter. I found myself at the foot of a high mountain and looking down into a vast plain through which wound a majestic river. On the margin of this river stood an eastern-looking city, such as we read of in the Arabian tales, but of a character even more singular than any there described. From my position, which was far above the level of the town, I could perceive its every nook and corner, as if delineated on a map. The streets seemed innumerable and crossed each other irregularly in all directions, but were rather long, winding alleys than streets, and absolutely swarmed with inhabitants. The houses were wildly picturesque. On every hand was a wilderness of balconies, of verandas, of minarets, of shrines, and fantastically carved oriels. Bazaars abounded, and there were displayed rich wares in infinite variety and profusion, silks, muslins, the most dazzling cutlery, the most magnificent jewels and gems. Besides these things were seen on all sides banners and palanquins, litters with stately dames close veiled, elephants gorgeously caparisoned, idols grotesquely hewn, drums, banners, and gongs, spears, and silver and gilded maces. Amid the crowd and the clamor and the general intricacy and confusion, amid the million of black and yellow men, turbaned and robed and of flowing beard, there roamed a countless multitude of holy filleted bulbs, while vast regions of the filthy but sacred ape clamored, chattering and shrieking, about the cornices of the mosques, or clung to the minarets and the oriels. From the swarming streets to the banks of the river, there descended innumerable flights of steps leading to bathing places, where the river itself seemed to force a passage with difficulty through the vast fleets of deeply burthened ships that far and wide encountered the surface. Beyond the limits of the city arose, in the frequent and majestic groups, the palm and the cocoa, with other gigantic and weird trees of vast age. Here and there might be seen a field of rice, the thatched hut of a peasant, a tank, a stray temple, a gypsy camp, or a solitary, graceful maiden taking her way with a pitcher upon her head to the banks of a magnificent river. You will say now, of course, that I dreamed. But not so. What I saw, what I heard, what I felt, what I thought, had about it nothing of the unmistakable idiosyncrasy of the dream. All was rigorously self-consistent. At first, doubting that I was really awake, I entered into a series of tests, which soon convinced me that I really was. Now, when one dreams, and in the dream suspects he dreams, the suspicion never fails to confirm itself, and the sleeper is almost immediately aroused. Thus Novalis errs, not in saying that we are near waking when we dream the dream. He had the vision occur to me as I describe it, without my suspecting it as a dream. Then a dream it might absolutely have been. But, occurring as it did, and suspected and tested as it was, I am forced to class it among other phenomena. In this, I am not sure that you are wrong, observed Dr. Templeton. But proceed. You arose and descended into the city. I arose, continued Bedloe, regarding the doctor with an air of profound astonishment. I arose, as you say, and descended into the city. On my way, I fell in with an immense populace, crowding through every avenue, all in the same direction, and exhibiting in every action the wildest excitement. Very suddenly, and by some inconceivable impulse, I became intensely imbued with personal interest in what was going on. I seemed to feel that I had an important part to play, without exactly understanding what it was. Against the crowd, which envisioned me, however, I experienced a deep sentiment of animosity. I shrank from amid them, and swiftly, by circuitous path, reached and entered the city. Here was all the wildest tumult and concentration. A small party of men, clad in garments half Indian, half European, and offered by gentlemen in uniform partly British, were engaged at great odds with the swarming rabble of the alleys. I joined the weaker party, arming myself with the weapons of the fallen officer, and fighting I knew not whom with the nervous ferocity of despair. We were soon overpowered by numbers and driven to seek refuge in a species of kiosk. Here we barricaded ourselves, and for the present were secure. From a loophole near the summit of the kiosk, I perceived a vast crowd in furious agitation, surrounding and assaulting a gay parade that overhung the river. Presently, from an upper window of this place, there descended an effeminate-looking person by means of a string made of turbans of his attendants. A boat was at hand in which he escaped to the opposite bank of the river. And now, a new object took possession of my soul. I spoke a few hurried but energetic words to my companions, and having succeeded in gaining a few of them to my purpose, made a frantic sally from the kiosk. We rushed amid the crowd that surrounded it. They retreated at first before us. They rallied, fought madly, and retreated again. In the meantime, we were borne far from the kiosk, and became bewildered again and entangled among the narrow streets of tall, overhanging houses into the recesses of which the sun had never been able to shine. The rabble pressed impetuously upon us, harassing us with their spears and overwhelming us with the writhing crease of the Malay. They were made to imitate the body of a creeping serpent, and were long and black, and with a poisoned barb. One of them struck me upon the right temple. I reeled and fell. An instantaneous and dreadful sickness seized me. I struggled. I gasped. I died. You will hardly persist now, I said, smiling, that the whole of your adventure was not a dream. You are not prepared to maintain that you are dead? When I said those words, I, of course, expected some lively sally from Bedloe in the reply. But, to my astonishment, and his eyes were starting from their sockets. Proceed, he at length said hoarsely to Bedloe. For many minutes, continued the latter, my sole sentiment, my sole freeing, was that of darkness and nonentity, with the consciousness of death. At length, that seemed to pass a violent and sudden shock through my soul, as if of electricity. With it came a sense of elasticity and of light. This latter I felt, not saw. In an instant, I seemed to rise from the ground, but I had no bodily, no visible, no audible or palpable presence. The crowd had departed. The tumult had ceased. The city was in comparative repose. Beneath me lay my corpse, with the arrow in my temple, the whole head greatly swollen and disfigured. But all these things I felt, not saw. I took interest in nothing. Even the corpse seemed a matter in which I had no concern. Volition I had none, but appeared to be impelled into motion, and flitted buoyantly out of the city, retracing. Greetings, Fiona. Oh, it's okay. We're wrapping up this weird morphine-fueled haze of a dream where some, but let's get you your card. Oh, we got another napper. And I think this is a good one for you considering everything you're going through right now. Pretend stillness is a strategy. Nap accordingly. Your stillness is a strategy. No need to pretend. I hope you're taking care over there. So, yeah, the guy went on a morphine-fueled walk through the woods, heard drums, saw a naked dude run past him being chased by a hyena. And then stumbled upon this city. And while he is in the mountains in Charlottesville, Virginia, apparently he's experiencing some Arabian Nights situation. And they're fighting each other. When I said these words, I expected for many minutes. In my temple, even the corpse seemed a matter in which I had no concern. Volition, I had none, but appeared to be impelled into motion, and flitted buoyantly out of the city, retracing the circuitous path by which I had entered it. When I had attained that point of the ravine in the mountains, at which I had encountered the hyena, I again experienced a shock, as if a galvanic battery. The sense of weight of every time I turn this page. Damn it. We're gonna get this together. Well, I guess this is almost over. Oh yeah, it's hot there. Yes, it's like so hot. He has like it's like that humid haze. It'll do. Of substance returned. I became my original self and bent my steps eagerly homeward. But the past had not lost the vividness of the real. And not now, even if for an instant, can I compel my understanding to regard it as a dream. Nor was it, said Templeton, with an air of deep solemnity. Yet it would be difficult to say how otherwise it should be termed. Let us suppose only that the soul of the man today is upon the verge of some stupendous physical discoveries. Let us content ourselves with this supposition. For the rest, I have some explanation to make. Here is a watercolor drawing, which I should have shown you before, but which is an unaccountable sentiment of horror hath hitherto prevented me from showing. We looked at the picture which he presented. I saw nothing in it of an extraordinary character, but its effect upon Bedloe was prodigious. Oh, prodigious. He nearly fainted as he gazed, and yet it was but a miniature portrait, a miraculously accurate one, to be sure, of his own very remarkable features. At least this was my thought as I regarded it. You will perceive, said Templeton, the date of this picture. It is here, scarcely visible in the corner. 1780. In this year was the portrait taken. It is the likeness of a dead friend, a Mr. Oldham, to whom I became much attached at Calcutta during the administration of Warren Hastings. I was then only 20 years old when I first saw you, Mr. Bedloe, at Saratoga. It was the miraculous similarity which existed between yourself and the painting which induced me to accost you, to seek your friendship, and to bring about those arrangements which resulted in my becoming your constant your constant companion. In accompanying this point, I was urged partly, and perhaps principally, by a regretful memory of the deceased, but also, in part, by an uneasy, and not altogether horrorless, curiosity respecting yourself. In your detail of the vision which presented itself to you amid the hills, you've described, with the minutest accuracy, the Indian city of Benares, upon the holy river. The riots, the combat, the massacre, were actual events from the insurrection of Chait Singh, which took place in 1780, when Hastings was put in imminent peril of his life. The man escaping by the string of turbans was Chait Singh himself. The party in the kiosk were sepoys and British officers, headed by Hastings. Of this party I was one, and did all I could to prevent the rash and fatal sally of the officer who fell in the crowded alleys by the poisoned arrow of Bengali. That officer was my dearest friend. It was Oldham. You will perceive by these manuscripts. Here the speaker produced a notebook to which you fancied these. Here the speaker produced a notebook in which several pages appeared to have been freshly written. That at the very period in which you fancied these things amid the hills, I was engaged in detailing them in paper at home. About a week after this conversation, the following paragraphs appeared in a Charlottesville paper. We have the painful duty of announcing the death of Mr. Augustus Bedloe, a gentleman whose amiable manners and many virtues have long endeared him to the citizens of Charlottesville. Mr. B, for some years past, has been subject to nostalgia, which has often been threatened to terminate fatally. But this can be regarded as only the immediate cause of his decease. The proximate cause was one of especial singularity. In an excursion to the ragged mountains, a few days since a slight cold and fever were contracted, attended with the great determination of blood to the head. To relieve this, Dr. Templeton resorted to topical bleeding. Oh, the bleeding again. It's never good when that's happening. To relieve this, he resorted to topical bleeding. Leeches were applied to the temple. Oh, leeches were applied to the temples. Fearfully, In a fearfully brief period, the patient died when it appeared that in the jar containing the leeches had been introduced, by accident, one of the venomous vernicular sanguses, which are now and then found in neighboring ponds. This creature fastened itself upon a small artery in the right temple. Its close resemblance to the medicinal leech caused the mistake to be overlooked until too late. NB, the poisonous sangu of Charlottesville, may always be distinguished from the medicinal leech by its blackness, and especially by its writhing or vermicular motions, which very nearly resemble those of a snake. I was speaking with the editor of the paper in question upon the topic of his remarkable accident, when it occurred to me to ask how it happened that the name of the deceased had been given as Bedloe. I noticed that there wasn't an E on that. I presume, I said, you have authority for this spelling, but I've always supposed the name to be written with an E at the end. Authority? No, he replied. It is a mere typographical error. The name is Bedloe with an E, all the world over, and I never knew it to be spelt otherwise in my life. Then, I said mutteringly as I turned upon my heel, then indeed it has come to pass that one truth is stranger than any fiction. For Bedloe, without the E, what is it but Oldeb conversed? And this man tells me that it is a typographical error. Oh, that was fun. We had our tale in the Ragged Mountains. So the doctor recognized this guy and was drugging him and I mean, not even actually recognized him, but I saw in your soul that you're some dude, so let me just keep you morphined up so we can start accessing your past life, because that's what he saw while he was hallucinating out in the mountains, was how this guy Bedloe died. Okay. That's what I got out of that. Oh, greetings, a softer place to land. We may be at the end, but you get your card. Let's see what we have for you. Ew! Right on time. Chaos mitigation. Validate, then vanish. Smoke bomb optional. Oh, Aris, welcome to Begrudging Book Club. I will go ahead and get you your card, but we just finished reading our 2 post stories for the day. Ooh, you've got move. Spin slowly until dizziness resembles clarity. Stop when the metaphor lands. Well, guys, you hallucinated in Charlottesville. True story. I believe that. Charlottesville is a place. I have done the trail of consumption in Charlottesville. Because they had all kinds of... No, I was not hanging out in leech swamps. I was hanging out at wineries and breweries. But yes, thank you guys, as always, for another fabulous Begrudging Book Club. I will go ahead and post all of your cards later. We'll get everything done. You guys, stay begrudging, stay grateful. Oh, I guess you guys are going to have to keep your chat going elsewheres. Bye, guys. Oh, my mouse is dead. It gave up on me. That was a bug. Bye.